to order. Madam the Clerk, if you would start with the roll call, please.
Commissioner Varga, Commissioner Palomera,
Here.
Commissioner Baker McCormick, Commissioner Dobb,
Here.
Commissioner Baydoun,
Here.
Commissioner Anderson,
Here.
Chair Hattis.
Present.
You have a quorum present.
Thank you. I have no remark, but I know things moving well in the economic development area. We have so many projects in the pipeline and waiting for the administration to start send them to the commission for approval and keep everybody busy. Item C, next item.
C, approve the August 9th, 2022 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Support. Motion been made and supported. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those who agree signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, motion carried. Next item.
D, unfinished business. There is none listed.
Thank you. Next item.
Item 1, under new business, communication from Assistant Executive Director, Van Buren Township Downtown Development Authority, forwarding notification of annual informational meetings.
Support.
Motion been made and supported to receive and file. All those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Next item.
Item 2, a presentation by Luz Meza, Economic Development Department, on a new sustainability initiative.
Good morning, Luz.
Good morning,
Floor
Commissioners.
is yours. Introduce your team and proceed.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. Luz Meza, Director of the Economic Development Division. We are bringing today a presentation on a project we've been working on for the better part of the last year. As we started having conversations with stakeholders about ARPA funding, one of the questions that came up frequently was how is the county responding to issues related to climate change? Obviously, we've seen historic rains and historic floods in the area, and you can't go, anywhere downriver without being asked about sustainability. We were fielding a lot of questions, and we became very intentional about how we were going to start responding to those questions. And so at that point, we were very lucky to recruit a policy fellow in the Masters of Public Policy program at the University of Michigan, who came on to become our sustainability coordinator. Ramsey Ritchie supported us in engaging our stakeholders in the sustainability space to identify the main concerns that we had around sustainability in the county and start ideating some solutions. In this case, sustainability, we use it to mean, it can mean a lot of things, and we're really focusing both on sustainability and resiliency within the county as it relates to a number of items to create better quality of life for our residents, but also to think about the county's impact in the sustainability space and how we can even generate some cost savings from a sustainability standpoint. I'm going to introduce Ramsey Ritchie. He is our fellow from the University of Michigan and sustainability coordinator. He is going to present our progress in this work and what you all can expect in the coming months in terms of our sustainability strategy.
Thank you, Luz. I'm going to move this up a little bit. And thank you to the members of the committee. I'm really excited to be here today and talk about some of the work that we've been doing really since October. And as Luz said, my name is Ramsey Ritchie. I am the sustainability coordinator for the Economic Development Office. And I'm going to spend a few minutes today talking about my work with the Wayne County Sustainability Advisory Group, which I helped start in partnership with Dave Schreiber, who's sitting behind me, our senior business development manager, and resulted in the two projects that I'm going to spend some time talking about today. My hope and our hope is that these initiatives set the groundwork for a robust sustainability and resiliency program in Wayne County in the coming years. But before we get into that, I want to direct you all to this slide to talk about why this is important. Why should Wayne County even have a sustainability program? On one level or another, every organization and individual that we worked with in the Sustainability Advisory Group told us that sustainability and resiliency needs to be a priority for the county. Here are some examples that they gave us for why. As many of us know, many communities in Wayne County are uniquely vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. These vulnerabilities, as Luz mentioned, have been on full display in the past few years. But we're going to see more flooding, more high heat days, more public health emergencies, and other catastrophic events in coming years. Even despite this reality, Michigan is considered the place to be given our natural resources as things get worse throughout the country in coming years. So even as the rates of disaster in our communities increase, we're going to see an influx of new residents in Michigan and in Wayne County in particular. This is an influx that requires a robust framework for sustainability and resiliency. Right now, we have a chance to create a structure to prepare for those events, mitigate those effects, and lead Wayne County towards a more resilient future. I believe that the initiatives that I'm going to talk about today that we plan to pursue will additionally increase social equity in the county. They're going to give us better resource distribution apparatuses, job creation, and increases in quality of life. Next slide, please. There's another reason, and it's become more and more clear in the past few months, why we should be pursuing this. And that's because over the next 5 years, Wayne County is going to have access to an unprecedented amount of funding for environmental, sustainability, and climate adaptation work. The Inflation Reduction Act and Bipartisan Infrastructure Bill are going to pump billions of dollars into state and local sustainability and resilience projects. This is funding that we can use to improve our infrastructure, create new jobs, and provide new and equitable resources to our residents. We need to set the groundwork now to apply for and be prepared for that funding. And finally, on top of that, the Supreme Court is slowly rolling back federal power to combat climate change. This is a moment when municipalities like Wayne County can lead the way in making a better future for our world. But I am getting well ahead of myself. Let me move forward a little bit on this slide. We, as Wayne County, are frankly a little bit behind the ball on this. Other cities and counties across the country are doing work and have dedicated sustainability staff doing sustainability work in their communities. This map alone represents the only over 250 members of the Urban Sustainability Directors Network. Every point on this map represents a city or county with staff that are explicitly charged with a cross-departmental and community-wide responsibility for sustainability programs. Next slide. In our local region alone, Oakland County, Cuyahoga County, Washtenaw County, Grand Rapids, Holland, Ferndale, Flint, Royal Oak, Lansing, Ann Arbor, and Detroit are all doing this work. Again, these are places with staff that are explicitly charged with cross-departmental and county-wide sustainability responsibilities. Wayne County should be on this map. Next slide. But before I go into all that and exactly what the initiatives are, I think it's worth noting how we got there. So I want to spend a second talking about the Wayne County Sustainability Advisory Group. It formed in January with the goal of developing a shared vision for sustainability in the county. Next slide, please. The Sustainability Advisory Group consists of 28 organizations spread out across the business, nonprofit, and government sectors. We met 6 times over the course of 3 months, and out of those meetings, developed a set of 17 project initiative recommendations based on this framework of objectives that I'm going to present. Next slide. Here's the list, and it's going to be a little small, but hopefully you all can see it in your packet, of advisory group members. Each of these community institutions, some of which approached us, some of whom we approached, expressed a strong interest in shaping a vision for sustainability in Wayne County. For some, like EcoWorks and the Green Door Initiative, this commitment is central to their mission, and they've been doing this work for a very long time. For others like GM, Ford, and Bedrock, the commitment is a central value of their organizational structure. Either way, each of the organizations that we worked with were actively fired up to brainstorm feasible and transformational solutions to make Wayne County a more resilient and sustainable county. And the enthusiasm for this work really shone through as the project progressed. I've been in settings like this before, and generally you see a lot of fall off, people lose interest, they realize it's not what they were looking for. As we progressed, more and more organizations asked to be a part of the work that they were doing because they wanted to be involved in creating a shared vision for sustainability. So there's a clear appetite and desire within our county, from corporations to nonprofits to our local municipalities, to be involved in building this work together. Next slide. The objectives that the group established ended up breaking up into these 3 areas. It's the county's role in sustainability, the project standards that we should have for any sustainability work that we do, and what our core initiatives should be. Ultimately, the advisory group ended up articulating that the county should serve as a partner in and a convener of sustainability work, that our standards should be that we're ensuring equity in any project that we pursue, and that all projects operate under accountability and transparency standards, and that our core initiatives operate under the decarbonization, natural resource conservation, or environmental justice spaces. I'll go ahead and stop here. At the end of these 3 months, as I said, we had 17 projects generated, all of which sort of fell under these various core initiatives that I listed. And before I get into those projects, I just want to make sure, does anyone have any pressing questions that I should touch on before I go into that? Okay, I'll keep trucking on through. So if we go to the next slide. Getting into more of the meat, by the end of these 3 months, as I said, we had these 17 project initiatives. And what Dave Schreiber and I spent a lot of time doing was going through the projects that we had and assessing them on these 3 criteria. To what extent can they enhance social equity in Wayne County and for Wayne County residents? To what extent can they generate revenue for the county government, but also for the county as a whole? And then to what extent can they save money for the county moving forward? Next slide, please. We ended up coming with 2 projects, which are very small on that slide, but hopefully, again, you can see in your packet. The first is the one I'm going to spend the most time on because it'll probably be the most unfamiliar to you all, and that's creating a resilience hub network throughout Wayne County's most vulnerable communities. And the second is a larger energy efficiency strategy involving energy efficiency audits and improvements for Wayne County buildings, our fleet, and then our maintenance equipment. So I'm going to jump into the resilience hub. And please do stop me if you have any specific questions on this, because some of it will probably be unfamiliar to you all. Next slide, please. So this first project, the Wayne County Resilience Hub Network, stemmed from a perceived need amongst the advisory group for greater communication from the county to support residents before, during, and after climate-related disasters. Our advisory group told us that if you really want to help residents during this moment of disruption, you need to go to where they are. They suggested that we utilize our community institutions to develop a localized communications apparatus that supports residents and connects them to county resources. A network of spaces formerly in the sustainability space known as resilience hubs. A resilience hub is defined as a physical space that supports residents and coordinates resource distribution and services before, during, or after a disaster. It is, as Dave Schreiber loves to call it, a community center on steroids. A resilience hub ultimately provides Wayne County to intervene during disasters, but it would be a loss if this were just about helping communities during disasters. What the Wayne County Resilience Hub Network would be built to do is to get resources into the hands of county residents that need them when they need them through institutions that they trust. Resilience hubs offer an immediate opportunity for Wayne County to enhance our community resilience by working with trusted institutions that people are used to going to. And it gives us an opportunity to increase our long-term disaster response by expanding our emergency management capacity through these other organizations. So let me tell you what you're looking at here with this specific map. We've identified 10 potential areas that are situated in Wayne County's most vulnerable communities based off of the CDC Social Vulnerability Index, which is used by FEMA as well as a variety of other organizations to assess vulnerability to climate disasters. In each of these communities, there are already organizations that operate services and bolster networks that directly serve their communities in need. Next slide, please. Through a resilience hub, the county would partner with these organizations to distribute county resources to communities in need. In normal times, this would take the form of an established communication network that directly connects community institutions to county and other government resources. And then in moments of disaster, like last year's floods or the onslaught of another pandemic, these organizations would be enabled to serve as spaces of refuge, resources, and dependable communication on a hyperlocal level. We would want to enable them to bolster their physical space using things like solar plus power so that if the power goes out, they can still provide dependable power to their communities, as well as connections to our emergency management resources. But what's really important to note here is that we're not adding or changing the operational burden of any county programs. We're also not looking to replace or duplicate the work that our emergency management team does on a regular basis and the processes they already have in place. We're simply connecting these existing initiatives into a robust communications network that will help ensure that our resources get into the right hands as quickly as possible. But, and next slide, please. That's not all that we're talking about here. We're also talking about a two-way street of communication with the organizations in our communities. Even as we work with the community centers and organizations to connect them to county resources, they'll communicate back to us with feedback about how we can better serve them. And establishing this network will create a continuous information loop in the county to our community institutions and back to us again. Next slide. And here's just an example of what that could look like in terms of this constant cycle of information back and forth. Next slide. So if you're wondering what programs and resources I'm talking about, here is a very non-exhaustive list. We, as a county, provide a lot of different resources to communities, whether it's through our emergency rental assistance program, the Pay As You Stay program, the many, many programs that our public health department and veteran services provide to residents. And then we're also a part of networks through organizations like LEWA and DTE that are providing resources to residents on a daily basis. This network, through the Resilience Hub network, could establish one-stop shops throughout the county where people could come in and have access to these resources and to the information they need to apply for them. Next slide. Cities and counties across the country are actively developing these networks already, and the city of Baltimore is really the poster child for that work. They have a network of 15, Minneapolis and Oakland have pilot projects up and running, and Fulton County and Miami-Dade County are in the process of developing county-wide networks. I'm going to spend a moment on Baltimore specifically because, as I said, it pioneered this project and has probably been the most successful with it so far. Starting in 2013, they started developing relationships with community serving institutions throughout their community. These could be houses of worship, community centers, community organization, or really any organization or body that has a physical space that is trusted by the community and actively provides services. In exchange, for the connection with the city, these organizations provided an MOU, or a memorandum of understanding, to the city that they would assist their communities in times of disaster. The city responded with giving them assistance in responding to emergency management situations and applying for and receiving federal, state, and philanthropic funding, and in training them to understand the climate and health risks endemic to their community. It's important to note that to date, Baltimore has spent $0 of general funds on this project, and it's been about 9 years. The Wayne County Resilience Hub program would copy Baltimore's model and expand it to a countywide network. Next slide. There's supposed to be a $sign on that other side, but a lot of what we've talked about as we've been having conversations about funding is how we can make it sustainable, especially with things like ARPA funding. This is one time. And so it's hard to know exactly how we're going to get money to people in a way that can be sustainable over time. But as I said at the beginning, we're about to see a massive amount of funding wash into the county from the federal government. Additionally, environmental adaptation and resilience work is increasingly a high priority for state governments and local philanthropies. We've already had conversations with Kresge and the Herb Foundation about this work, and they seem really interested if we can get the framework up and running. So what our initial investment will do is situate the county and, perhaps more importantly, our community partners to receive that funding. By establishing a foundation for the Resilience Hub network, we'll qualify ourselves and our community institutions to benefit from our country's increasing attention to environmental resiliency. This is an opportunity that I really don't think that we should pass by. But the next slide addresses maybe a more fundamental question. Even if it's sustainable, is this actually transformational? Is this actually what we want to spend our money on? Next slide. Over the course of my research and development of this project, I've talked to dozens of community serving organizations throughout Wayne County. And as each of you know, especially the commissioners in the room, our county is home to a massive array of houses of worship, neighborhood block clubs, and nonprofit organizations that dedicate their time and resources to serving the local community. By making this investment in initial 8 to 10 hubs in Wayne County's most vulnerable communities, we can create a network of institutions with overlapping spheres of influence. We can transform our county into an interconnected web of institutions dedicated to enhancing the resiliency of their individual communities specifically and the county as a whole. So that is it on the Resilience Hub initiative. I know that was long and I'm not going to spend nearly as much time on the energy efficiency initiatives, but I'll jump into that really quickly. Our next initiative is really focused more fundamentally on decreasing costs for the county while also decreasing our carbon footprint in general. The three initiatives I have on there are building energy efficiency upgrades, converting our fleet to electric vehicles, and making conversions within county maintenance equipment so that we can electrify it. Next slide. I identified throughout a lot of my research a bunch of different counties throughout the country that are already doing this. But one in particular stood out as sort of the poster child of a big strategy, and that's through Fairfax County, Virginia's operational energy strategy. They project a payback period of 7 years for the electrification and transformation of the county, resulting in a return on investment of $82 million over the course of 10 years. Now, Fairfax's plan is expansive. It involves electrifying every county-owned vehicle. It involves transferring every county-owned streetlight to LEDs and retrofitting county-owned buildings to be more energy efficient. There are more piecemeal initiatives that I think are really worth looking at as an alternative. Pima County, Arizona has a plan to electrify their fleet over the course of the next 6 years and are looking at a savings of $1.4 million over the course of the lifetime of their fleet. $140,000 a year. And Montgomery County, Maryland offers another example with their recent pilot of an electric mowing team, which decreased the particulate matter put out by the county by hundreds of pounds, which could be significant in Wayne County, where we have a significant issue with the public health risks inherent in particulate matter emissions. Next slide. My proposal is that the county make an initial investment towards the previously noted energy audits and initial improvements to jumpstart a perpetual cycle of funding for energy efficiency work in the county. And that perpetual cycle would take the form of what I have here, which is a revolving energy efficiency fund. The concept for which is simple. We take an initial investment and put it towards energy efficiency audits and improvements, and we calculate the savings from those improvements to funnel them back into a revolving energy efficiency fund. We then set the rules for that fund so that it can only be used for further energy efficiency upgrades. So those savings from those projects are funneling back in to energy efficiency work. Given the potential efficiencies that, based on my conversations with the building team and a variety of other research that I've done through our various billing data, I think we could gain a lot from this fund early on, and it could serve as an effective way to provide resources for much needed internal energy efficiency improvements for the next decade, if not longer. As a side note, a revolving energy efficiency fund will further qualify Wayne County for future state and federal funding, a lot of which is going to come through the Inflation Reduction Act. So because we'll be able to provide match funding for a federal grant for building energy efficiency, which again does exist in the Inflation Reduction Act. So those are the two initiatives. I appreciate you all taking that time with me, and I just want to thank you so much for engaging in this presentation. I'm really excited about this work and its capacity to make a change for county residents and for the county moving forward, and I hope we get to work together on it. I'll take any questions.
Question for Mr. Anderson. Commissioner Anderson.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the presentation. I think it's long overdue that Wayne County takes some steps to approach the issue of sustainability. I do have concerns about the funding and where that will come from. And I know you mentioned something, I believe you touched on proposing, there might be a proposal to use ARPA funds. So this is going to be an ongoing process for years to come. And I see it as new positions, new initiatives, as we get to that point that we discover there are things that we can do. Where would the funding come from? I know you're talking about the one-time, this is one-time funds from ARPA dollars, but that's a one-shot deal. And I know we even had our management and budget director said he didn't recommend using things for anything but a one-shot program. So this is a program that'll be ongoing, probably additional personnel. So how do we pay for it? I know you said there would be hopes that we would be eligible for state and federal dollars to pay for it, but that's a hope without anything concrete. And like I said, I do believe in the value of this, but I also know there's a lot of communities that are banking on the ARPA dollars and the projects that they're submitting. So I'd like to hear more about where the funding is going to come from, solid, something that's concrete, that we would know that it's going to be able to continue paying for the program. I'll give you a minute on that if you'd like to, or if you want to get something to me later, that would be, I'd be interested either way in getting it in either manner.
You have a quick response to that. I think, as I noted, these two projects are really focused on developing foundations and frameworks for larger, longer lasting projects. Those wouldn't necessarily, besides having a staff person, require continual funding from the county. I think that they would attract more funding from state and especially federal sources. It's really, really hard to underestimate how much funding we could qualify for, especially out of the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure legislation, if we have something set up to receive that funding. Right now we don't, so we're not going to qualify for it at all. So that's the first point, is I do think it's worth really considering the implications of not being qualified for this federal funding that's coming down. But then the second point is that what we're trying to establish through the Resilience Hub Network is a communication apparatus that really just requires planning and then having someone on staff who can continue to manage that moving forward. It doesn't require continual investment beyond that individual on staff. And so I think it's a good example of one where by investing this money, we set up the frameworks through which we can continue to communicate without actually investing more resources into it down the road. And then the second is through the energy efficiency work. That is explicitly money that can only be spent if it's going to show a return on investment and if it's going to make more money moving forward. So when it comes to spending one-time dollars, I think that both of these give us an opportunity to progress without needing more money in the future, while also giving us the opportunity to attract funding because of the way that the federal government is moving and our state government as well as local philanthropies.
Do we have any estimate right now of what we're talking about costs for the program?
The current estimate for both projects combined would be $1.5 million. 1.1 of that would come towards the Resilience Hub Network, and that's to increase capacity for the organizations that we're working with, and the other would go towards energy efficiency.
And at this point, it appeared as though there were only 2 communities that were involved in the early stages of putting this together and having the meetings. Have we communicated with the other 41 communities in the district or in the county to get ideas of what they're doing currently and what they would like to see as a result of this, or sharing ideas with those other 42 communities or 41 communities?
Certainly been in plenty of conversations with a variety of community leaders, but I will say most of our conversations have focused with community organizations, especially those that are operating in those highly vulnerable communities that we talked about based off of the CDC's index. And so, especially when it comes to the Resilience Hub side of things, that's where a lot of our work and community outreach has taken place, is the short answer to that question. I think the longer answer is that we hope that out of this, we can develop a framework through which we can really engage all 43 communities in what it looks like for a large scale sustainability effort to happen at the county level. This would just be that first push.
You're saying we just haven't gotten to that point yet.
Right, correct.
I think that's all I have right now. Thank you. Thanks for the presentation.
Commissioner Dobb?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was honored to be part of the advisory group on this project, and I am also really excited about this initiative. I think that, Wayne County being the largest county in Michigan, we should definitely be a leader in sustainability and addressing the climate crisis that is happening not only in our state, our country, but the world. Wayne County, we say that we're nationally recognized as a top place to live, work, and to grow a business, but we should be a a place where our climate is good as well. I just want to talk a little bit about Detroit as a community and environmental justice. Detroit is, I believe it is the highest community with the highest pollution rate in Michigan. We have neighborhoods that are surrounded by trash burning facilities. Detroit has the highest rate of asthma in Michigan. They have communities that are experiencing lead poisoning, air and water pollution, water shutoffs, power shutoffs. It's home to the 5 top most polluted zip codes in Michigan. The number 1 most polluted zip code is 48217. 29% higher, experiencing asthma is 29% higher than the state of Michigan. And one of the issues is vehicle exhaust. You know, we have the most traffic in the state of Michigan, and that is where we need to look into converting our fleet to electric vehicles, and that's one of our first initiatives here. We've just got so many cars on the roads emitting these carbon emissions. So I really I'm in support of looking at us being a leader in converting our vehicles to EV vehicles. Another thing is that, Commissioner Anderson talked about funding, and I know that the ARPA funds is just a one-time thing, but I really think that we should make this a priority. And we'll start out with these 2 initiatives. We'll start out with the ARPA funds, but I know that the team is looking at other grants and the, what is it called? The inflation reduction, whatever. But we're looking at that, but we do need to make this a priority. It's so important for, it's important now. We need to act now. This is not something that we can just do in 5, 10, 30 years down. This is happening now. We're seeing these 100-year rains, these floods, the high temperatures. We need to be a leader in Michigan. We need to be a leader in our country. And, I spoke a lot about Detroit, but we're seeing stuff happening in Plymouth Canton, Dearborn, all throughout the county. This is just a start, these 2 initiatives. In our advisory group, we had so many ideas, so many things that we wanted to do, but we got to start somewhere. So I'm so excited about this, and I definitely support the initiative and the project. And that's all I had to say. No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Palomero, the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and forgive me if I am coming across as Simon Cowell-like with this, but I don't mean to be. But I do want you to know this. You were poised, articulate, informative, responsive, and effective in representing your department today. I'm proud that you're in this role. I think it's a great program, and I look forward to working with you. Great job.
Live up to the Ramsey name, as I mentioned. Commissioner Baidoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Ramsey, for this very detailed and informative presentation. Really looking forward to this. Just to add to what my colleague Commissioner Dobb mentioned, the concerns about having some of the highest asthma rates in the country. In Detroit, and specifically there's an area in the city of Dearborn bordering Southwest Detroit, the south end of Dearborn. How do you envision working with these industrial complexes that produce so much emission? I mean, how do you envision, like the south end of Dearborn? Luz is very familiar with that area because it's close to Southwest Detroit. Is that going to be like this for many years to come? And hopefully we will have a reduction of a lot of this emission that's emitting to the air?
A really good question, something that we've thought about a lot when it comes to what the long-term implications of this project could look like and this initiative could look like. I think one of the exciting opportunities about being based out of the Office of Economic Development is for specifically industrial sites. We have the opportunity through our Brownfield Board to do really thoughtful work on one, cleaning up, but then two, correcting a lot of the institutional problems that have come out of highly industrialized spaces. And so on some level, on the regulatory level, those are things that we can advocate on a state and federal level. But on terms of fixing a lot of the problems, especially that Southwest Detroit and South Dearborn have experienced, there's a lot of levers that we can pull when it comes to being active in economic development and active in getting money towards Wayne County and towards these previously highly industrialized areas. One, to clean them up, and then two, to make sure that there's a rectification for the problems that are currently in those spaces. And again, I don't want to keep harping on the fact that there's money and we need to spend it, but people want to be a part of helping Wayne County move towards, especially our most vulnerable communities, move towards a space where they're not having to deal with PFAS and pollutants and particulate matter and high asthma rates. And so I think that if we can create the structure to pursue that, we'll be able to. Short answer, sorry, was the brownfields are a really great way to start.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Ramsey.
Commissioner. I try to be short. I know we're talking about utility, we're talking about making think better and everything. And I really don't know if it's the time, but I feel we're not paying too much attention to the lead pipe in the water. Lately, I've been communicating with some community leader, and they feel the issue is not going away by setting it back because of the high cost. But the issue, we want to reduce the pollution. It's a good thing, but we have something the people are drinking and the family drinking. I hope you, in your future study and research, I need the county to start to address that issue and pay attention to it because it's boiling. Otherwise, I echo the Vice Chair, Mr. Palamera, and your professionalism, a beautiful presentation. Luz, thank you for bringing it to us and your team. And we hope to continue work with you and make things better. Thank you. Any other question? Seeing none, we move to next item.
F, such other matters as may be properly submitted before the committee.
I have none.
Public comments.
Will you unmute the people online, see if there anybody there, anybody in the room like to have any comment? Seeing none, and now we could ask if there anybody online. Anybody like to comment on the Committee of Economic Development agenda? It's twice. For the third time, anybody like to comment? Madam the Clerk, you receive any email?
No emails.
Next item.
Adjournment. Support.
Motion been made and supported. All those who agree signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We adjourn. Thank